Hello, my friends. Rob Roselli coming to you once again on the Not Fox News Network, right here on my Facebook page, Rob Roselli1, website boxofsunglasses.com. Today being Tuesday, December 6th, 2016. And don't forget the books, okay, available. Again, the site boxofsunglasses.com, email info@robroselli. Excuse me, that's Twitter at Rob Roselli, and the email info@boxofsunglasses.com. And of course, the books available on the site, The Un-American Genocidal Complex. And remember, just a quick review for emphasis, Robert Christian, the builder of the Georgia Guidestones, which calls for the elimination of basically 6.5 billion with a B people, the anti-10 commandments of the Georgia Guidestones, brought to us by these guys, okay, tied in with these guys, the American Illuminati, known as the Skull and Bones, and of course, the driving force behind this all, the United Nations, the Rockefeller founded United Nations. And inside the book, The Un-American Genocidal Complex, of course, I document the deaths of due to the Darwinist American / British eugenics movement, which fed into Nazi Germany, the occultism, the Darwinism, the eugenics, okay, the genocidal psychopaths that still run the country, by the way, that have always run the world, essentially, since the Garden of Eden, okay, under their father, Lucifer, or Satan. And it's manifested itself all throughout history, okay, and this book right here is just a very thin slice of the, quote, conspiracy beyond the veil. It's your sunglasses, so to speak. Now, in here, we're probably only talking, 100 million deaths if you add up, Adolf Hitler, World War II, the American eugenics movement, the abortion, spiking the smallpox vaccine with the AIDS virus, and the hepatitis B vaccine here in the United States with the AIDS virus. I mean, we're only talking 100 million deaths, which is Bush League, okay, compared to what the occultists, the genocidal maniac, Luciferian, Satanist occultists that run this nation, and in fact the world, what they have in store, okay, and the Trump train, which is already derailing in my humble opinion, but that's another story. That's another minor story. Is not going to stop this thing, okay? The Trump train is powerless, okay? I hate to break the news to you, and I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not, okay? Trump train's not going to stop it. So, the next, pleased to meet you, okay, the third book, excuse me, that tries to explain the, quote, conspiracy in so many terms. And on last week's show, we talked about, what is the driving force, okay, behind the our criminal Illuminati overlords, and that would be this passage right here in the book of Proverbs, okay. This is Proverbs 15 and 16. There are 3 things that are never satisfied, yea, 4 things say not, it is enough, okay. The grave, the barren womb, the earth that is not filled with water, and the fire that saith not, it is enough. Now, when you go through these things, of course, the grave represents death, and who's in charge of death? Well, that would be Satan. If you go in the book of Ephesians, okay, and in Revelations, okay, he has the power of death, and that's his power. That's his source of power, okay, and he's never satisfied, okay. So it just never. In other words, and in the barren womb. Now this gets into. If you go to Luke chapter 23, okay, and Jesus tells the women that are following him right before he's crucified, he tells them, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves, for the days are coming when they will say, blessed are the wombs that are barren and the paps that never gave sucks. In other words, he's not talking about literal birth, okay, 2,000 years ago. This is where the biblical literates, again, are really for lack of a better word, just a bunch of morons. Okay, you look at language like that in Luke 23, and it doesn't make any sense to take that literally. I mean, your sin. You have children. I mean, and that's a sin. I mean, Jesus himself came to earth as a child. Okay, if you go back in Luke 1 and 2, but anyway, and then he says right after that, the time is coming when when they shall scream, let the rocks fall on us. Okay, which is basically right out of the sixth seal of Revelation. Okay, so from Luke 23, that's a direct link to the sixth seal of Revelation, where it says, the day of his wrath has come. Let the mountains fall on us and let us hide in the rocks. For the day of his wrath has come, and who shall be able to stand? Okay, which, as an aside, speaks against these, again, these so-called Christian prophecy experts, with their pre-tribulation rapture and their whatever, their 3.5-year tribulation and 2 witnesses and their Jewish temple and their comic book antichrist and also their nonsense. Okay, which we'll get into in a future show. But anyway, that's the reference here. So in other words, Satan always wants to have children. He wants to have children of hell. So now the language in John chapter 8, where John says, you have your father the devil, so you're the children of the devil. Matthew 23, remember, he calls them children of hell. Okay, talking about the Jewish, God's chosen people, the so-called Pharisees. Okay, so that's the language that comes into play there. Okay, the earth that is not filled with water, and the fire that saith not, it is enough. So in other words, as far as the fire goes, okay, that's getting into, I believe, the language, and I think it's in Mark's gospel. I'll say Mark chapter 3, and in Isaiah, the last verse in Isaiah 66, the fire that is not quenched and the worm that shall not die. Now what's being talked about there, it's a little bit complicated to explain. This is what I believe what's being explained there, but the fire or the illumination, now remember, the all-seeing eye, I mean, the fire is right here, okay, that he's talking about. Okay, on one level, you can never, it's associated with greed, okay? It's power. It's the top of the Egyptian pyramid. This is why I call Pharaoh Barry, and the Egyptian, his Rockefeller, Rothschild, Soros, his Egyptian high priest handlers, because it's the same exact situation as the Pharaoh of the Egyptian Old Testament. Okay, that's the exact parallel that's at play here. Okay, hence the Great Pyramid on the top of St. John's the Divine Cathedral right here in Mystery Babylon in New York City, and the same thing here. Okay, the symbolism is there. And that fire, that desire for, quote, illumination or knowledge can never be satisfied. Okay, and what this is all saying is that your greed, these people's greed, those running the world, it can never be satisfied. Okay, so you're the Rockefeller or Soros or whoever you are, and you already have trillions and trillions of dollars. And these old so-called robber barons. That's why they're called robber barons, because no matter how much money they had, how much money and power, prestige, ownership of entire nations, literally, Rothschilds. Okay, that could never be. Once you're given over to Satan and Lucifer, okay, that's kind of covered in here, in a sense, in this book, okay? That's what I'm trying to get at there. But that's it. Once you're given over, once you're the Pharaoh in Exodus, okay, and you believe that you own the world, okay, you're the son of the dead god Osiris or Apollo or Apollyon, Revelation chapter 9, okay, and we'll go through Revelation at some point in the future and tell really what's going on in Revelation, okay? And it's a far cry from the nonsense that you're going to hear on a Trinity Broadcasting Network, okay? The nonsense that just isn't going to happen, okay? And I think that's becoming more and more clear, okay? You're going to have a calamitous and sudden economic collapse, for example, just as Trump, if he gets into the White House in January, you're probably looking at basically an economic ambush. Okay, the owners of the world, they're not going to sit there and sit back and let Trump, do what he's going to do or try what he's going to do. But that's a whole other snake pit. Is Trump legit or not? I don't know. Bringing in, recycled Washington insiders and neocon hacks and this sort of thing. But I don't want to go off on that tangent right now. But anyway, the point being that these people there's no satisfying them. They can never, ever be satisfied. So if you're the original John Rockefeller and you own all the oil, United States, you own the Federal Reserve System. I mean, you've already basically literally sucked the life out of the once great United States. Essentially, the United States is your slave labor camp under the Federal Reserve System. Let's just be blunt. That's basically what it is. I mean, Proverbs 22:7, the debtor is slave to the lender. You can have as many, Paul Krugman, New York Times, Fabian socialist, Keynesian economist experts, Harvard University jack-offs that you want, 100 or 1,000, and put them all together. There's still a bunch of jerk-offs, okay, under the system of perpetual debt that can. Perpetual debt, in a sense, can never be satisfied either. So, in a sense, it's attached to these guys. But, so, again, to understand the, quote, conspiracy, again, you have to go to the Bible. There's no way around that, okay? You can sit there, and I listen to a lot of these guys for news, and Jim Willey, for example, Gerald Celente, and you can YouTube and just type in these names and get up-to-the-date information. And it's good information. I believe these are intelligent people. But at some point, okay, when you're done listening, it's like, okay, well, now what? Now the economy is going to collapse. The United States is basically going to go the way of the, Zimbabwe and the Weimar Republic and these other socialist utopias that, that man tried to strive for. Okay, Mad Max scenario, the economic collapse and all this other sort of thing. Then what? Then where do you go? What do you do? I mean, you lock yourself in an underground bunker, okay, with 6 months worth of food and ammo, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years. And then what's the world going to be like when you emerge? I mean, it's depressing, okay? I wish I didn't have to talk about it. I really don't want to be here talking about it, to be quite honest. I'm not a media personality, but that's just the reality of it. That's just mathematically, that's what is coming. Okay, I don't know what else to say. All right, of course, defend yourself and all this sort of thing, and Jesus was not averse to people defending themselves. Okay, if you go back in Matthew, and Peter pulls out his sword and chops off, I think it was the servant Malchus, chops off his ear. Okay, I think that's Matthew 26, and that's also covered in John's Gospel. I believe I want to say John 18. Okay, but then he says, put the sword back up in your sheath. Okay, so wait a second. So number one, he was carrying a sword, and number two, Jesus didn't say, throw that thing away. He said, put it back in your sheath. The reason he's saying that, okay, those were dangerous times walking through Israel, and thieves and isolated roads. They were walking around between the different cities in Israel, okay, but that's self-defense, okay. But then he also says, to Pilate, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would be fighting. They'd be fighting right now, okay. So I admit, it's a little bit of a fine line, but it's definitely a distinct line. But anyway, that all ties into the whole Mad Max scenario that's becoming upon us. Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is don't sit around and wait for some silly rapture, okay, that you hear on the Trinity Broadcasting Network, these goofballs, listening to Joel Osteen and Rick Warren, and all these other nimrods, okay, and argue about a pre-tribulation rapture like you're going to be evaporated out of the world before all these bad things start to happen. It's not going to go down like that. Okay, what's coming, the Revelation, we've covered it, again, the Mystery Babylon USA link on my website, which reads like today's headlines. Okay, I'll just be blunt. Okay, and I wrote that 5 years ago. It's a more likely scenario. Okay, you're going to wake up one day, and I think if Trump gets into the White House, that's the time to really watch out. If he's even allowed to get there, and I'm not sure he is, just based on the blind occultism of our Egyptian high priest overlords that operate this image of the beast, this multi-name scam Obama, Pharaoh Barry in the White House. I don't think they'll let Trump get sworn in as the 45th president, and I believe it's based on the occultism of Obama, which, by the way, is covered on boxofsunglasses.com, the opening page. If you scroll down to the bottom, that's backwards, excuse me, as everything else. But anyway, the numerology of Abomination, okay? And that by itself, again, I could have, if I had the resources and the time, I could have made a book out of that, those two links by themselves, okay? But anyway, if you go in there and you read those, I don't believe that they're going to let Trump set foot in the White House. And I could be wrong, okay? They could be changing their plans. It could be part of the setup. Or it's quite simply Trump gets sworn in, within a week you have a calamitous economic collapse, and the word comes out, it was Trump. I mean, it's all Trump's fault. I mean, the blame it on lack of confidence. Who knows? And people are so dumbed down and so stupid, they'll believe it, okay? Or most people, not to say all people, but stupid may be too harsh a word. Ignorant, okay? Cognitive dissonance, or whatever the word is, the They Live scenario, okay? John Carpenter's They Live, my favorite movie. The most accurate Christian movie, by the way, I believe, way above this nonsense, this Tim LaHaye, Left Behind series and all this rapture, comic book antichrist crap that people have been fed all these years. Way above that, John Carpenter's They Live, and In the Mouth of Madness, okay? Much lesser known John Carpenter movie, but boy, does that one hit the nail on the head, okay, about where we're going and where we are as a society, basically a fundamentally insane and Black Friday, greedy, shallow society, Madison Avenue driven, Apple iPad, and also the techno crap driven society that we are, okay? And the collapse comes like that, okay? There's no comic book antichrist, there's no rapture, okay? There's no people lining up and getting stamped with 666s on their foreheads and all this other nonsense, okay? It's going to come hard and it's going to come fast, okay? And if there is a time where people get chipped and microchipped and all this kind of thing, maybe. But even if that does happen, that's a very thin slice of revelation, okay? It's very thin slice, and I know I'm going off on tangents, and again, this is under the umbrella of what's driving the people running the world. What's going to drive them to all this madness, okay? Just keep that in the back of your mind. That's how this show started. I'm kind of just trying to, bring it in under that umbrella. But anyway, this calamity, this economic collapse, if there is a some kind of stamping and microchipping and all this kind of thing, and there may be, but that's a very, very thin slice of revelation. Okay, this whole nonsense about Israel and the end times and all this stuff. What about the past 2,000 years? I mean, it always bothered me. So what about all the Huguenots and the Lollards and the John Wycliffes and the William Tyndales and the Protestants and the Puritans and the Pilgrims and all these other people, okay? And just your Christians getting fed to lions in the Roman Empire for the first 300 years before the scam known as the Catholic Church came online under the Emperor Constantine, who was pretty much a scam artist himself, in the aggregate, okay? What about all them? They don't count, okay? They're just all their sacrifice and whatever, that doesn't matter. Just the end times Christians, just these last Christians that they tell us, are covered in the book of Revelation. They just kind of get forgotten about. And Israel's God's chosen people, okay? The same people that, Jesus said you're condemned to hell. They call them a generation of vipers, okay? And children of the devil. That's God's chosen people. So anyway, so the interpretations are wrong for the most part, Okay, so again, really it's getting back to this segment in here in the book of Proverbs, okay, that explains basically, again, and I'll say it again, this is what the evil can never be satisfied, okay? The drive to kill 6.5 billion out of 7 billion people on the earth. There's nothing else that can explain that, okay? You know, you already have trillion, like you're David Rockefeller, you're the Rothschilds or whoever, and you already own the world. You already have trillions of dollars. Like, why can't you just sit quietly in your palaces and all over the world and let the world go about as it will? That's not good enough. Okay, that's what this section in Proverbs. Okay, and again, all right, this is Proverbs chapter 30, 15, and 16. Okay, those four things that can never be satisfied. That's your answer. Okay. You know, you can listen to people and these explanations about pipelines and gas pipelines and petrodollars and geopolitical scheming and Webster Tarpley and Jim Mars and David Icke and all these other kinds of people. And I'm not saying, look, I have some of their books and I read their information just to kind of keep supplement my knowledge, okay, and get my, you know, grasp of geopolitical events. But at the end of the day, then what happens? Okay, so what? Okay, the Adolf Hitler was made in the United States of America. That's fact. That's basic historical fact. Financially, spiritually, okay, philosophically, militarily, Adolf Hitler was made in the United States of America. Okay, what are you going to do? You're going to call the police? You're going to call the FBI and arrest them? They're above anything. They're above the press. They're above 200 million, you know, pissed off Americans that just voted for Donald Trump. Okay, Trump's getting little victories here and there with these different companies and these different deals, but we're 20 trillion with a T in debt. Okay, 100 to 200 trillion with a T if you count the unfunded liabilities. Okay, why is nobody talking about this? Okay, countries around the world are dropping United States bonds, treasuries, quietly, and they can do it quietly because nobody on the media, including Fox News, those half-assed jokers on Fox News, those idiots with their nonsense. I mean, I watched a story the other day about Domino's pizza deliveries in Japan. It was a headline on Fox News. All right, but you're never going to hear about bond yields in China and Saudi Arabia and Russia dropping United States bonds, government issued bonds, like a bad habit. Because it's all propaganda. The United States news is a joke. Okay, the unfolding war situation in Syria and the Ukraine, you don't hear anything about. Okay, which is really by the way, Syria, I believe, is the drive for World War III. This psychopathic drive for World War III. Okay, and we covered that in the occult conspiracy on previous shows, and you can read about that. I think it's page 9 on my site. Again, boxofsunglasses.com. You can read about the occult conspiracy and the 3 world wars and all that, and the Rosicrucians. But again, that's, I don't know what else to say at this point. I mean, that'll pretty much, we'll go a little bit short tonight, but focus in on that passage, and there's your answer. Okay, so, you know, again, just to review my 3 principles, and we'll just conclude with this. I mean, the quote conspiracy is so vast, there's no way to get your hand around it. So number 1 principles, you know, the Bible explains everything. It's the infallible word of God, and it sits at the core of the quote conspiracy. Okay, and if you're not willing to believe that, or you're going to question that, that's fine. I can't stop you. Okay, I'm not the religion of peace. I'm not going to chop your head off or force you to pay a tax. Or it doesn't work like that. Okay, you have to come to this belief yourself. Okay, Jesus certainly didn't chase the rich man down in Matthew 19 and threaten to chop his head off, or, you know, force him into slave labor, or force him to pay a tax. Jesus said, okay, you know, you're You're acting like a good person. You follow the basic commandments, and they'll sell everything you have and follow me. And the guy turned around and took off. Jesus didn't go chase him down. He said, see what I mean? It's easier for a rich man, easy for, depends on which version of the Bible you read, but anyway, it's easier to put a rope or a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Okay. So think about that. If you're in Proverbs and and your greed essentially can never be satisfied, I think it's Psalm 107, or Psalm 103. Okay, as far as the east is from the west is as far as, your sins will be removed from you. Okay, so in other words, what God is saying, if you think about it, east to west, east is associated with the sun and light and God. John chapter 1, light was the life of men, and the west is sunset and darkness. Okay, which is representative of the bottomless pit and Apollyon and Osiris. Revelation 9, which is the true king that these people worship. Okay, remember in this book we talked about this on past shows, the chameleon or the unknown god. Okay, that's talked about in Acts chapter 17 also, by the way. What he's referring to is Osiris. Okay, so you have Cain running around, okay, which is the biblical Satan running around. John chapter 8, he was a murderer from the beginning. He's talking about Cain. But there's something much worse. This is another little offshoot. It's hard to kind of keep this stuff. But anyway, just going just a little bit. There's something much worse than plain old Satan running around. Okay. And that's Apollo or Apollyon from Revelation chapter 9. Okay. He's the hidden god. He's the Osiris of the ancient Egyptians. Okay. He's the stone that the builders accepted. Okay. So in other words, Satan is only the image. This is a guy we need to watch out for. This is the Osiris, the hidden god, okay, who was Nimrod. Okay, now we're getting into like Steve Quayle territory, and I don't really want to go off there, and I don't know nearly as much as he does about those kinds of things, but that's basically where that's going. Okay, which is another reason why to take God up on his simple salvation plan. Okay, because when things go down, they're going to go down hard, they're going to go down fast, and things are going to get bizarre, okay, and wacky real quick, okay, as our Illuminati overlords start to lose their grip, and they are losing their grip, okay. These stories coming out, the Pizzagate, and some people may have heard about, and all this other sort of thing, which I'm not going to cover here. You can YouTube that and hear about all that. I'm not an investigative journalist. I don't have time. I don't have the financial resources to get into that, but my focus is to stick with the Bible and Revelation and go at it from there. But to be that as it may, okay, the people in control are losing their grip, okay, but they're going to get desperate, okay. They're not going to go away. It's going to get dark, okay. They're going to pull out all the stops, okay. These people are shot, okay. They're psychopaths, they're Luciferians, they're Satanists, just like their bottomless pit, their ultimate destination. There's no bottom to these people, okay? There's no light that can uncover their darkness, okay? That's it, okay? So, and again, that's all rotates around, principle number one, the Bible is the core, the quote conspiracy, and it's the core of everything, okay? In God's Simple Salvation Plan on my website, boxofsunglasses.com. The second is, Israel is not God's chosen people, okay? And that usually goes hand in hand with the biblical literalist, okay, who, as I just said, is a very simple example from Luke 23, where Jesus talks about, barren wombs, okay, and paps that never gave suck, and, again, he's not talking about literal birth, literal physical birth. That doesn't make any sense, okay? He's talking about essentially whoring yourself, okay, or being a child of the devil, which means you think like the devil, okay? You're part of Satan's seed, not in a literal sense, but in a mental and a spiritual sense, just like the Pharisees were, okay? Now, of course, the Pharisees were, a human mother and a human father, but when Jesus says you're children you're like your father, the devil. Does that mean, Satan's running around the earth, and, copulating and inseminating, and basically having children with human mothers? No. Okay, that's not what that means. Okay, it means it's a spiritual acceptance of Satan and his ways. Okay, which, if you think about it, is just about the whole human race. Okay, which gets into why I believe Revelation chapter 13. I would think this, this might sound a little wacky because you're so used to hearing so much nonsense. I think we all have the mark of the beast. Okay, you cannot buy or sell. Well, think about it. I mean, you can't buy or sell. Who can buy or sell in this world? Okay, without these things, there's some offshoot of this. Okay, yeah, look, you can get your hard money, get your gold, and go off the grid and all this sort of thing. But I mean, come on. And realistically, that's what's being talked about there. But who's going to step back, or who's going to save themselves from that? Okay, when you start looking at things from a different perspective, then things start to make sense. Okay, if you look at Revelation 13, the mark of whoever accepts the mark of the beast. Okay, whoever's going to get the microchip, you're going to hell. If whoever doesn't take the microchip, you're going to get raptured out of here. Well, that's great. But the first question, any reasonable person will ask, well, what about the last 2,000 years? What happened when they didn't have microchips? What happens to those people? It doesn't make any sense. Okay. So that's why you got to look at things differently. Okay, you got to encompass the whole picture, all of history. Okay, you can't just sit there and take these childish interpretations and forget about everything else, because then you just look like an idiot, because then non-Christians can come in and ask the same questions that I'm asking. Okay, but anyway, that goes again back to the point where Israel are not God's chosen people. Okay, the prophecy is not centered in the Middle East, at least as far as people in this nation need to be concerned. Okay, I believe there will be a battle of Armageddon, but after Mystery Babylon is wiped off the map, which would be us. Okay. And the third principle, well, that is my third principle, is the United States is the Mystery Babylon of Revelation. And we talked about that a little bit at the top of the show. Revelation 17 and 18, at least the breakdown that I have on my website, is today's headlines. Okay, you could take today's headlines and overlay it, what I'm saying there, and it's pretty much an exact match. Okay. So anyway, again, the most important thing, God's simple salvation plan. The website, boxofsunglasses.com. And again, I'll try and get on here 9 p.m. Eastern time on this. If I'm not here, there's some family or other obligation, work obligation or something that I can't make it. But you can always go to the YouTube channel. And again, those links are on my homepage of the website. Okay, good night and God bless.